years and a vegan for almost 10 years, protecting animals from unnecessary pain and suffering caused by needless testing of cosmetic products, well, it was a no-brainer for me. And I think for many people in Hawaii and across the nation. So there's been a growing awareness of the need to do more to protect our little furry friends. People are increasingly looking for cosmetic products that are cruelty-free. And plus today's methods of testing are more accurate and efficient. So non-animal testing allows us to protect human health without sacrificing the necessary product testing. And as I mentioned, this bill will make our state one of just 6 states, and that includes California, Illinois, Nevada, Virginia, and Maryland, to pass such a law. And we also join over 40 countries around the world that have restricted animal testing for cosmetics in recent years. So how did we get this done? The Hawaiian word is laulima, many hands working together. We brought the stakeholders to the table. Cosmetic companies, the consumers, the animal advocates, to come up with agreements and find some common ground to ensure that animals are not needlessly harmed for the sake of cosmetics. Second bill, shark protection, HB House Bill 553. If you read the morning paper, you'll see an article on that on page B1. Hopefully none of you like to eat sharks. It was 11 years ago when Hawaii passed a landmark law, 2010, prohibiting the finning of sharks and the sale of shark fins and fin products, a cruel practice that drives the massive scale killing of these important apex predators. And unfortunately, that law in 2010, it didn't extend to protecting the whole shark from commercial exploitation or intentional killing. So I personally introduced this bill 5 years in a row, starting in 2017, but those versions did not pass. And by the way, one of the things I love about my job is it teaches me patience and perseverance. Rep. Nicole Lowen from Hawaii Island, who chairs the EEP committee in the House, that's Energy and Environmental Protection. She and I were able to partner on the introduction of the companion bills, House Bill 553 and Senate Bill 504 in 2021. And so basically companion bills are identical, and they're introduced in both chambers with the hopes that one of them will pass through the whole committee structure and finally passing on the floor so that we can all vote on it. And here's the data that we looked at on sharks. Local reef shark populations have seen declines in their population by upwards of 90%. Globally, 71% of shark populations have declined, with 3/4 of shark species facing potential extinction. So this legislation protects the sacred mano, the aumakua, to many Native Hawaiian families by prohibiting the intentional killing of sharks for sport or commercial purposes, or for the killing for their jaws, teeth, and other parts. And the bill will prohibit knowingly capturing or killing any shark within state marine waters. And there are some exemptions, ensuring that the fishers are not subject to penalties for the accidental catch and release of a shark. And that also that there's exemptions for that make sure that important shark behavior research continues. It was kind of cool because on this legislation, we had an assist from actor Leonardo DiCaprio. He sent out a supportive tweet on April 1st. And again, see, that's what I meant by laulima, is that it's the policymakers, the people out there, you folks out there, people on the mainland, actors, professional people, whoever, they see it, they get involved, and it all helps. It all works toward getting good legislation passed. So I'm hopeful the governor will sign this bill. It will go into effect this coming January. The fines will be $500 for a first offense, $2,000 for a second offense, $10,000 for a third offense. And there's also a provision that DLNR may issue a non-commercial permit for the take of sharks, subject to permit conditions that include Native Hawaiian cultural protocols, size and species restrictions, and yeah. So next bill, animal sex abuse. SB 343. Now, you didn't see too much coverage of this bill for obvious reasons. A reporter from the Star Advertiser called me and he told me they actually had an editorial board meeting where they were discussing whether or not even to cover this bill. You know, it's a family newspaper and it's not the kind of thing that you want young kids to find out about and then bring it up at the family dinner, conversation at the family dinner table. But anyway, bestiality is banned in 47 states. And I felt strongly that it's time for Hawaii to make it 48. And so by getting SB 343 signed into law, we'll better protect both animals and those most vulnerable, our keiki. I really didn't know this, but there's actually a strong link between animal sex abuse and child sex abuse. We saw a study of more than 44,000 adult male sex offenders, concluding that sex assault of an animal is the strongest predictor of the sex assault of a child. So some studies have also drawn connections between sex assault of animals and serial homicide. So SB 343, it contains penalties of a Class C felony for sexual assault of an animal, and then a Class B felony for subjecting a child to sex contact with an animal. And generally, a Class C felony is up to 5 years of prison time and up to a $10,000 fine. A Class B felony would be up to 10 years of prison time, and then a fine of up to $10,000. And then the next piece of legislation was SCR 44. That stands for Senate Concurrent Resolution. That means the House and the Senate passed this together. And again, what comes to mind is Laulima, many hands working together. And I mahalo the efforts of the Hawaii Climate Environmental Coalition. And that was 37 organizations that came together to help get our climate emergency reso adopted by both the Senate and the House. And I'm stoked that the legislature took this action to declare a climate emergency. It makes us the first state in the country to do so, and which is very important in terms of our state's leadership nationally and internationally on this issue. It reminded me of how back in 2015, Hawaii was the first state to pass a 100% clean renewable energy goal by the year 2045. And since then, 16 states have followed our example, followed our lead. So hopefully other states will get on board and pass similar legislation to SCR 44 in their respective states. And it's also to note, while resolutions, they're not binding legislation, but passing this reso gives our community something to rally around and to work toward real actions to mitigate and to adapt to climate change instead of just, talk about it. And as I mentioned, we set the example, and we're already starting to hear from other states saying, right on, Hawaii, we're going to do that in our state. Next bill, SB 348, aluminum cans. Now here's an interesting one. And this was inspired by a site visit I had out to Ball Corporation in Campbell Industrial Park in 2019. That used to be part of my Senate district, but it got cut off the last reapportionment. So this is the third year that I've introduced this bill. So I'm happy to see that we're almost over the finish line. Ball Corporation, founded in 1880, it's the largest aluminum beverage and aluminum aerosol can maker in the world. They employ 18,000 people in 90 manufacturing locations in North and Central America, South America, Europe, Asia, Middle East, and Africa. So here's the kicker. Hawaii is the only state in the country that has this antiquated law in the books, which prohibits carbonated soft drinks, juice, and beer operations from using the same equipment to can non-carbonated bottled water. So this is crazy because companies like Ball Corporation, also Maui Brewing Company, they could be selling bottled water in aluminum cans, which would, guess what, greatly reduce the use of plastic bottles. And reducing single-use plastics is a huge priority of mine. Unlike plastic bottles, aluminum cans are 100% recyclable. And so this bill, SB 348, removes that antiquated law. And it will create a positive impact in supporting local businesses and our overall economy, and while also providing a local solution to a challenging environmental problem. Been told they're going to save millions and millions of dollars by passing this law. And beverage businesses in our state who want to expand into aluminum cans will be able to do so. And as I mentioned, save millions of dollars. And manufacturing of aluminum beverage cans will also increase as a result of the passage of this bill, which means what? Creation of more jobs. So putting drinking water into cans is safe, and passage of this bill, SB 340, will not jeopardize the health and safety of consumers. They use antimicrobial agents such as ozone in the filling process, and that eliminates the potential for microbiological contamination when water is filled in aluminum cans using the same lines as these other beverages. So aluminum cans are infinitely recyclable, with 75% of the aluminum ever produced still in use today. Putting water in aluminum cans offers consumers a sustainable alternative to single-use plastic. So in summary, it's good for the economy, good for the environment, and hopefully, again, the governor will act favorably on this bill. All right, so here's two bills I want to talk about briefly that will help our farmers. First one is SB 336, agricultural loans. Right now, ag loans of $25,000 or more. If a farmer wants to get this loan, they've got to go to the Board of Agriculture and go through their meeting process and get their approval. And so this current law has not been updated since the 1980s. So the Department of Ag approached us. They want to amend the law so to meet the needs of 21st century farmers. So this bill will increase that threshold to $50,000 and allow loans up to this amount to be approved by the director of the Department of Ag without the board's input. And so this, the bill makes sense. It gives Department of Ag more flexibility to provide small scale ag loans to farmers. And it would facilitate being able to give out loans in times of emergency in a quick manner. And this is especially important in these hard economic times. As you know, as I mentioned, being the 5th year of chairing the Agriculture Environment Committee, average age of farmers in Hawaii is 61. We import 85 to 90% of our food at a cost of $3 billion of food, $3 billion a year. And we just need to do all that we can to encourage and to help our farmers. And then the other bill was a SB 489 having to do with greenhouses. This bill expands the allowable use of ag shade cloth, cold frame, and greenhouse structures. Currently, it's 20,000 square feet. That's the maximum. This will expand it to 60,000 square feet. And so this allows farmers to benefit from economies of scale and to expand their produce production. And as stated from CTAR, the UH College of Tropical Ag and Human Resources, and I quote, they said, given the known advantage of such structures, this bill has the potential to have a significantly large effect on Hawaii agriculture. So, and then moving on to the next bill, Senate Bill 367, excuse me, on beach restoration. There was a 2012 study by UH and also by the US Geological Survey showing that 70% of beaches in Hawaii are eroding. And so there are burdensome regulations and permit requirements for beach restoration and maintenance projects, which discourage and prevent individuals and community organizations and government agencies from starting up these beach restoration projects. So what this bill does, it waives Section 401 of the Fed requirements for beach restoration that have received notice of authorization to proceed from DLNR from their small-scale beach restoration program. And so DLNR, Department of Land and Natural Resources, they'd be able to issue these permits for 5 years for these beach restorations. And then here are a few other AEN bills that I did not introduce, but I did support their passage. HB 469, this sets up an Act 90 working group. And Act 90 was actually passed in 2003. And what that does is it transfers a certain non-ag parklands from DLNR to the Department of Ag. And so far, 19,000 acres of these lands have been transferred, but that only represents 15% of the total. And so from the rancher's perspective, they don't trust DLNR, right? They're fearful because DLNR can take their lands back at any time, and they want better lease terms. But this bill would establish a working group to look at the whole process and the status of transferring these lands, determine what the challenges are, and also the potential remedies of fulfilling the purposes of that law, Act 90. Next one, HB 1102, balloons. You ever see all those, and coming up to graduation time, you ever see all those balloons being released into the sky around high school graduation? Wonder what happens to the balloons? Well, the reality is the release of these balloons that are inflated with lighter than air gases, they pose a huge danger and nuisance to the environment, particularly to wildlife and marine animals. I've seen numerous videos of marine animals and birds, their stomachs filled with balloon pieces and plastics as well. So several states, including California, Connecticut, Florida, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia, as well as numerous counties in other states, have already prohibited the release of balloons that are inflated with these lighter than air gases. So this bill prohibits the intentional release of balloons that are inflated with these types of gases. And the exemptions would be for a balloon that's released for research or meteorological purposes, a hot air balloon that is covered after launching, and also a balloon that's released and remains indoors. And the violation would be a civil penalty of no more than $500 for each offense. And by the way, the balloon industry supports the bans on releasing these balloons because it doesn't hurt their industry, as the law will not ban balloons outright. We got a few calls on this. You're Gabbard, you're banning balloons. What the hell do you think? Anyway, so only the release is banned. And then another bill, SB 855. So this bill helps our coffee growers with the huge problems that they face with invasive species. First, coffee bearer borers, and now they're dealing with the new one called coffee leaf rust. So this bill expands the pesticide subsidy program that allows reimbursements to growers for the purchase of biopesticides and fungicides to be used against these two critters, or not critters, but one critter and one, the coffee bearer borer and coffee leaf rust. And so the pesticide subsidy limit amount right now is $12,000. Next bill, House Bill 416, dog tethering. And so for all you dog lovers out there, this bill allows for the prevention of dog aggression and potential neglect by allowing law enforcement to intervene to educate dog owners before an animal becomes aggressive or the dog endangers itself by being chained or tethered in a dangerous manner. So what this bill does, it adds the following to the current second-degree cruelty to animals statute. And the new offense, it'll be enforced if the person intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly uses a trolley with swivels, pulley, cable, running line, or trolley lacking swivels at each end that is designed to attach a dog to two stationary objects in a configuration that endangers the dog, including preventing the dog from obtaining necessary sustenance. And so this bill makes it so that no dog under the age of 6 months shall be tethered or restrained unless the dog is engaged in an activity supervised by its owner or an agent of its owner. And the bill would also require that no dog is tethered or restrained by a tow or log chain. I'm a cat guy, so I don't know all these terms here, but for you dog lovers, I'm sure you do. The bill also makes it so that no dog can be tethered or restrained by means of a choke collar, a pinch collar, or prong collar unless the dog is engaged in activity supervised by its owner or agent of its owner. Okay, and so there was a group called Pono Advocacy. They stated in their testimony that chained dogs are 3 times more likely to bite and become aggressive than unchained dogs. And of those bites, children are 5 times more likely to be the victim. Next bill, HB 767, farm to school. This bill would move the Hawaii Farm to School program from Department of Ag to the Department of Education. It would also, which I think is very cool, it establishes a programmatic goal for DOE that at least 30% of the food served in public schools shall consist of locally sourced products by the year 2030. And again, see, this helps, again, we keep talking about helping our farmers use more local food. We can do this. Here's a concrete example of how we can help achieve that goal. Next, food waste, SB 244. So this bill is intended to address the issue of food waste. Hawaii businesses and residents discard more than 237,000 tons of food waste per year. And at the same time, many people on our island go hungry. And I'll be mentioning this on the summit that I'll be speaking at after this meeting is over. And so what this bill does, it expands the liability protections for organizations such as Hawaii Food Bank, churches, whatever, that provide food donations to the needy. And what the bill does is allows a donation of expired food. When you buy your stuff at the store, it'll say expires such and such a date. So this allows the donation of that expired when the donor makes a good faith judgment that the food is unspoiled. Okay. And then the next one, HB 1318. This has to do with the OEQC, that's the Office of Environmental Quality Control, excuse me, or OEQC, and it transfers their functions and duties from the Department of Health to the Office of Planning. And then the Environmental Council, they would be attached to the Office of Planning. Now, if you're not up to speed on this, the OEQC, their main objective is implementing Chapter 343, which is our Environmental Impact Statement Law. And so the OEQC director and planners, they review and comment on environmental disclosure documents. And then the Environmental Council, that's a liaison between the OEQC director and the general public. So next bill, SB 186, restricted ag use. This bill is needed to prevent the restriction of agricultural uses and activities on lots within the state agricultural district. And as some background, homeowners associations, they've been circumventing the law by renewing ag restrictions that existed prior to July 8th, 2003, claiming that the renewed terms continue to be exempt from the law despite those agreements by their own terms. So imagine, you're living on, it's ag land, and you want to do some plantings, and your homeowner association says, sorry, you can't do that. So that's what this bill addresses. So if bona fide farmers that are seeking to enforce the law, they've been, over the years, they've been faced with accepting the restriction or hiring an attorney for costly lawsuits against these very well-funded homeowners associations. So again, this bill clarifies that these renewed contracts restricting ag uses and activities on ag lands are considered new contracts and are not subject to the prior to 2003. Next bill, HB 243, sea level rise. And this bill directs the Office of Planning to coordinate the work of state agencies to address sea level rise impacts in relation to state facilities. And it also clarifies that the Office of Planning take a lead role in climate change and sea level rise adaptation. Next bill is SB 512. You know, the enactment of Act 153 in 2019 created a Hawaii Healthy Food Incentive Program, also known as the Double Up Food Bucks program. And this is run by Department of Ag, and it provides a dollar for dollar match for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, basically the old food stamps program, for those beneficiaries who purchase locally grown fruits and veggies at participating farmers markets, grocery stores, and community-supported ag projects, or CSA. So this bill, it gets rid of the $10 per visit per day cap and allows the purchase of healthy proteins under the Double Up Food Bucks program. So we've got a lot of positive feedback from folks on that bill. Another bill to help our farmers, HB 237. This is an invasive species, the two-lined spittlebug, in case you've never heard of this one. It's a big threat for health and the vitality of our pasture lands. And so our ranchers are especially impacted by this invasive species. So this bill appropriates $350,000 for the next 2 fiscal years to Department of Ag to mitigate and control the two-lined spittlebug. They're basically destroying thousands of acres of pasture lands by gobbling them up, right? And the next bill is SB 1313, sportfish. The northern largemouth bass and butterfly peacock bass are some of the most popular game fish in the US, with the northern largemouth bass existing in the state's artificial reservoirs here in Hawaii since 1896. And the butterfly peacock bass has been here since 1957. So what this bill does is it directs DLNR to establish a pilot project to restock the northern largemouth bass and the butterfly peacock bass, either or both, in the Wahiawa public fishing area, on the condition that the Board of Ag has placed the northern largemouth bass on the restricted use list that requires a permit for import into the state. Next, State Department produce goals, HB 817. This requires the state departments to ensure that a certain percentage of produce that is purchased is locally grown, which will ensure that the continued growth of local produce, it supports local farmers and ranchers, and ensures that the revenue from the produce of contracts for locally grown produce remains in the state. And here's what was passed. 10% by 2025, this is all by January 1st, 18% by 2030, 26% by 2035, 34% by 2040, 42% by 2045, and 50% by 2050. So again, another bill hopefully passing into law, which helps us, instead of just talking about it, actually doing something about it. Okay, let's see. What's our time like? Okay, we're doing okay. Let's see. We have, I'd like to go over a few of the bills that did not pass. Just, you may have seen in the on the front page of the local media about the Agribusiness Development Corporation, or ADC. That's an agency that was started up in 1994 to facilitate and provide direction for the transition of Hawaii's agriculture industry, you know, from the dominance of sugar and pineapple to one composed of diversity of different crops. And so according to the ADC's 2019 report, they manage over 22,000 acres of public ag lands. So you may have seen in the news, in the media, there was an audit that was done and basically saying that they're not fulfilling their duty. And so in the legislature, there were 2 bills introduced. The first one was HB 1271 in the House, which basically said, you guys are useless. We want to just totally do away with the ADC and turn over their responsibility to the Department of Ag. And of course, the Department of Ag was going, well, how are we going to do that? So then I introduced the other bill, SB 335. And what that did is, instead of doing away with the agency, SB 335 ensured that the ADC and Department of Ag prioritize food production for local consumption and require the ADC to have at least 50% of their lands leased to operations dedicated to local food production. And then the bill also would require transparency and accountability by requiring the Department of Ag and ADC to submit annual reports to the legislature on the Department of Ag's and ADC's leasing activities. And so at the end of the session, each of those bills, the House bill and the Senate bill, they did pass their respective chambers, but they died when it crossed over to the other chamber. So it's one of those things where we'll be visiting this issue again next year. Next bill, SB 969, animal fur. More than 180 million animals are violently killed every year solely for their fur. More than 85% of the pelts in the world's fur trade come from fur farms, while the remaining 15% of pelts are from animals trapped in the wild. So this bill would ban the sale of animal fur products in the state starting on December 1st, 2021. The Department of Ag, Department of Commerce, Community Affairs, and the AG are directed in the bill to collaborate on educational matters to inform retail merchants and suppliers about changes in the law. Unfortunately, the bill died. It did not get a hearing in conference. And that's where, of course, where the Senate passes the bill, the House passes a bill. At the end of session, the conference committees get together and try to hammer out their differences. In this case, the House did not give it a hearing. So we'll see that one again next year, I'm sure. SB 337, cover crops, again, helping our farmers. Now, remember, we're talking about bills that did not pass now. This is one of the bills that I introduced. So a cover crop, it reduces the amount and speed of runoff. The result is reduced erosion and loss of surface soil. So what basically cover crops do, it helps heal the soil, which makes the foods that we eat more nutritious. And so what this bill did was set up a 3-year crop reimbursement pilot program under the Department of Ag to reimburse farmers for the cost of acquiring cover crop seeds or green manure. So this passed the Senate, but it did not get a hearing in the House Ag Committee. So guaranteed we'll see that one again next year. Next bill, SB 219, crimes on ag lands. And this is a head scratcher. I can't tell you how pissed off I get every time I see a news piece where somebody goes and rips off another guy's papayas or whatever, bananas. And, the fact that our farmers are struggling in the first place, they plant, they're getting ready to harvest, they go out to their crops, and some, you can quote me on this, asshole has stolen their crops. So April 2020, USDA, they published a report indicating that ag theft and crime, listen to this now, it cost Hawaii farm producers $14.4 million, or 10% of the 2018 Hawaii net farm income of $142 million. And according to that same report, there were nearly 4,000 incidents of thefts, over 1,100 incidents of vandalism, and over 14,000 trespassing incidents occurred during 2019. So this bill would impose extended prison terms for offenses committed on ag lands. And the maximum length of time for the extended prison sentences would be 20 years, a Class B felony, 10 years, a Class C felony, or 2 years for the misdemeanor, or 60 days for a petty misdemeanor. Now, I sit on the Judiciary Committee. When that bill went to the JDC, our committee, we amended it to require an offense committed on ag lands to meet the legal standard of negligence or higher for an extended term of imprisonment to apply. It went to conference, passed in the House, it went to conference committee, and it died next year. Here's another bill, SB 346, that I introduced on egg-laying hens. Millions of egg-laying chickens in the US are still confined in cages, that the industry terms battery cages. Each chicken is provided roughly 67 square inches of space to live her entire life. And that's smaller than the dimensions of a sheet of paper. So anyway, this bill makes it illegal for a farm owner or operator within the state to knowingly cause any egg-laying hen to be confined in such a cruel manner. It passed the Senate, but it did not get a hearing in the House Agricultural Committee. Then SB 350, this is Environmental Management Division. And this bill came about because of the problems of near ocean waters and streams of Mahalepu area of Kauai being contaminated by fecal matter, and Department of Health not doing enough to notify people about the hazards. And Scott, you'll pay attention to this one, yeah. The bill does the following. It requires that the Clean Water Branch of the Environmental Management Division, DOH, to test water quality as part of its Hawaii beach monitoring program during brown water advisories, adhering to the regularly scheduled beach sampling schedules. And it requires that the Clean Water Branch, during those advisories, explain the health risks associated with water runoff, including informational signs posted during those advisories so the public knows that are affected near Tier 1 beaches. And it prioritizes environmental justice issues when considering public health risk for the department's ranking of beaches. So that one too passed the Senate, passed the House, went to conference, but there was no release of money from the Finance Committee in the House and also the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate. Senate Bill 338, another one of my bills on food hubs. Food hubs are centrally located facilities with a business management structure that facilitates the aggregation, storage, processing, and distribution and marketing of locally grown produce. And they are an integral missing piece of ag infrastructure. So this particular bill has established a 5-year food hub pilot program under the Department of Ag, and it would allow the awarding of grant funding to qualified applicants for the construction of these, the infrastructure that you need to establish and expand these food hubs. Passed the Senate, did not get a hearing in the House Finance Committee. And then the Green Amendment, another one of my bills that I introduced, Senate Bill SB 502. And this was drafted with the help of a woman, Maya Van Rossum from Delaware. What it does is it likens rights of religious expression and speech to those of clean air, water, and stable climate. And so these green amendments that have started to be introduced across the country, they serve to emphasize environmental health and safety as being part of our basic civil liberties. And so the woman Maya, she had a big legal victory against fracking on the Delaware River. And that's when the Green Amendment movement was born. Pennsylvania is the only state that has one passed. And so what this would do was, actually Montana and Pennsylvania are the 2 states that have green amendments. So what this bill would have done was amend our state constitution to guarantee individuals the right to have a clean and healthy environment. And the question that would have been on the ballot in 2022 would read, and I quote, "Shall the Constitution of the state of Hawaii be amended to provide that each person has a right to a clean and healthy environment, including pure water, clean air, healthy ecosystems, and a stable climate, and to the preservation of the natural, cultural, scenic, and healthful qualities of the environment, unquote. And remember, that's the question that would have been on the ballot. Passed the Senate. It did not get a hearing in the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs in the House. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Sunscreens, as you know, we passed the reef safe sunscreen law that went into effect in January. I introduced another one, that law that we passed in 2018, although it just went into effect January 1st, it was first in the world law. And this bill was the next step to ban 2 more chemicals that were problematic, avobenzone or octocrylene, starting January 1st. And that did not get a hearing in the Senate, in the CPC, or Consumer Protection Committee. So we'll see, reintroduce that one next year. So here are some non-AEN bill highlights that you may have seen in the media. The salary increase, that was all over the headlines, SB 1350. And by the way, the legislature does not give itself pay raises. There's a salary commission that makes those recommendations. So on this bill, the salary increases were deferred for the executive and judicial branches for an additional 18 months, and for the legislature deferred for an additional 2 years. And so minimum wage, SB 676. This particular bill was an increase in minimum wage to $12 per hour starting July 1st, 2022. Currently, the minimum wage is $10.10. The bill passed the Senate, but it did not get a hearing in the House Labor and Tourism Committee. Cannabis legalization, SB 676. I know some of you might be interested in this particular bill. And this one legalized 30 grams of cannabis or less for recreational use. Also placed restrictions on where cannabis can be used. Passed the Senate, but did not get a hearing in the Health and Human Services Committee. And I did vote in support of that bill in the Senate. DHHL Casino, SB 1321. And this authorized a 40-year gambling license on a single Department of Hawaiian Homeland's property in Kapolei, in my district, just down the street from where I live. And this bill was DOA, and I don't mean Department of Ag, I mean dead on arrival. And actually weren't even able to vote on it because Senator Shima Bukuro, the chair of the Hawaiian Affairs Committee, she killed it in committee. Aloha Stadium, you may have seen, HB 1348, establishes a special fund under the Stadium Authority to totally revamp. I just saw in the news just the other night that they're planning to demolish it earlier, Aloha Stadium, earlier than they had planned. But this sets up the whole new community there and business community there. Passed the legislature, I voted in support. HB 446. Here's another one that pisses me off. Catalytic converters. I hope none of you have had this experience of having your catalytic converter stolen from your exhaust system. I saw a news clip just the other night. I think it was Thursday. Yeah. There's a couple, they're standing by a car. And within about a minute, the woman is kind of looking around. The guy gets under the car. A minute to 90 seconds, he rips off the catalytic converter. And so this bill would have classified catalytic converter theft as a Class C felony. And what the bill also did is requires the seller to provide contact information and vehicle records to the buyer. It also required the buyers of catalytic converters from the sellers who don't provide the necessary documents to refuse the sale and report the attempted sale to the police, and then sets the fines of $100 to $2,000 for buyers who do not comply. So it passed the House and the Senate. CPN committee, but it did not get a hearing in JDC WAM. And so, yeah, who knows? Again, we'll look at that one for next year. And let's see, what's our time like, Meg? Let's see.
Got a couple minutes.
A few minutes, yeah. Let's switch over to community updates here. Let's see here, just to make sure we. Okay. All right, you got the community updates there, Meg?
Yes, I'm working on it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. I see the reso and stats.
All right, let me get this in screen.
Those of you that joined late because it's the end of the year, end of the session, I'm just basically doing all the talking. And we finished the legislative update. I'd like to go into the community updates for Senate District 20. So basically $40 million you'll see there was secured for Senate District 20. You'll see there $6 million for Kapolei High School, $25 million for widening Farrington Highway from Kapolei Golf Course to Fort Weaver Road, $5 million for the East Kapolei Transit-Oriented Development and Telecom Infrastructure, $4 million for East Kapolei Elementary School in Ho'opili as that community begins to grow. $3.5 million for UH West Oahu renewal project, excuse me. $2 million for the East Kapolei 2C site construction for Hawaiian Homelands, $500,000 for East Kapolei High School for planning, the new Kapolei High School additional, excuse me, let me take that back. Not the new high school. This is $500,000 for the additional restrooms. Now, District 20, construction and development. What's that old song? It's been a long time coming. This past week, I was happy to join in person to celebrate the Hawaiian Humane Society's EVA expansion groundbreaking. It's close to the location, it's close to the intersection of Fort Weaver Road and Old Fort Weaver Road. And with 74% of households on the leeward side owning at least one pet, the need for a West Oahu campus was a no-brainer. I know we have 7 feral cats that we are caretaking that have shown up at our home in Kalaeloa over the last 10 or 15 years. So this campus will provide much needed services such as animal sheltering, pet sterilization, adoptions, and lost and found assistance. And yes, hallelujah, a community dog park, which is the one that we get lots of constituent calls about. Next is the Kalaeloa Veterans Administration Clinic. And speaking of close to home, we've lived in Kalaeloa, the old formerly Barbers Point, since 2004. So Hunt Companies, Inc., they're the large landowner and developer in Kalaeloa. They have been selected to develop and construct a new 88,000 plus square foot, $100 million veterans outpatient facility in Kalaeloa. And this is really cool. So the VA, they awarded the lease to locate listen to this, the Advanced Leeward Outpatient Healthcare Access, acronym Aloha, to locate the project in Kalaeloa under a 15-year lease. The multi-specialty VA clinic will provide primary care, mental health care, x-ray, laboratory, diagnostic, pharmacy, and specialty care for the area's veterans and 87,000 veterans on Oahu. So the groundbreaking will take place late this year, 2021, and it'll bring approximately 400 jobs during construction and more than 200 new clinic jobs between the healthcare and the administrative staff when they open. Makakilo Drive Extension. I see some heads nodding. This is one that comes up frequently. Basically, it's been a thorn in the side for many folks, including me. As we all know, there's only one way in and one way out of Makakilo. And the last numbers I saw, there's around 20,000 folks that call Makakilo home. So this planned extension for Makakilo Drive, it connects North-South Road to Makakilo Drive. And as I said, it's been in limbo for years. The road now dead ends midway down the back of Makakilo and at the last house on the street. And so what's happening is Councilwoman Andrea Tupola will be conducting a Makakilo Drive Extension Town Hall to share the latest updates on from the Department of Transportation Services, DTS, at the city and county, and also the direction of Mayor Langiardi and the current administration. So we'll keep you posted on once the town hall date is announced. And then Fort Barrett, operational improvements. That began actually in December of 2020. The construction cost is $7.3 million. The contractor is Paul's Electric. And the project includes a whole slew of things: resurfacing, utility adjustment, widening, regrading, installation of a guardrail, end treatments, safety edge, shoulder dressings, pavement markings, striping, curb and gutter sidewalks, catch basins, traffic signals, et cetera, et cetera. The project is 25% complete. They're working on a shared use path right now, and also traffic signal connection between Kama'a and Kapolei Parkway. The resurfacing is expected to be completed in October of this year, 2 months away. And in May 3rd is that's when the contractor was working on the shoulder widening between the Kapolei Parkway and the railroad tracks. And so the substantial, basically the completion of the whole thing will be done by December of 2021. And then Kalaeloa roadway improvements. What's our time, Meg?
It's 10 o'clock.
Oh, we'll catch these other ones on the way. Actually, this is the last one. Basically, it's the Roosevelt Avenue is going to change from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. It'll have sidewalks, medians, planter strips, and let's see. And they also plan on adding 150 trees. So, folks, I am very sorry. I have to get to this next summit, End Hunger Summit. As I said, at the next meeting, we'll have time to exchange, but any comments, questions, please send me an email, okay? Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. Aloha.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, see you soon.
Many thanks.
Aloha.
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 Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.